I thought I'd seen it all. I thought I'd seen it all. By my count, this short video makes 6 specific claims of New King James Version errors and a few other assorted comments that might be worth a mention. And people are sending it to me, so it falls to me to answer this video put out by King James Onlyists. But first, can I just say sincerely that the guy who did the animation really did a great job. The visuals are very good. I was genuinely impressed. I'm not patronizing, I'm not scraping the bottom of the barrel. The colors are fun, the characters are aesthetically pleasing, the textures are amazing. I'd love to see this animator use his talents for children's ministry animations for some worthy parachurch organization, rather than for attempting to discredit a faithful Bible translation that never done him no harm. The first claim in the video is all about the idea that the New King James is supposed to just be an easier-to-read version of the King James. The first claim is that the change of hell in the King James Version to Hades in the New King James is a needless choice of a harder word that means the same thing, hell and Hades. I give a whole chapter to this question in my forthcoming book with Lexham Press, King James Words You Don't Know, You Don't Know. I also discuss this in this video that I'm pointing to now with my finger. I won't go deeply into this here. I'll point out just 2 things. First, Hades and hell do not mean the same thing. And second, Hades really is the more accurate rendering in today's English. However, and you'll have to read my book to get the full picture, I'm convinced that the King James translators did not get this one wrong. I think they chose a word, hell, whose meaning has changed in English since 1611. If you want some demonstration of this, you'll have to get my book when it comes out. If you can't afford a copy, I will find a way to get you one. Second, all of the major evangelical English Bible translations still use the word hell. They choose, in other words, when to use Hades and when to use hell. They are doing this for good reasons, reasons that a foam animation with guns blazing doesn't have time to explain, and that I won't take further time to discuss. The second claim in the video is incredibly obscure, but it too focuses on the idea that the New King James Version is supposed to just be a more readable version of the King James, a mere English update. I had not heard this particular argument from King James defenders before this video, so I had to look it up. It's all about whether a difficult and obscure Hebrew word in 1 Kings 10 is a thing or a place. I won't give a ruling here. I won't give my own opinion because I'm not yet worthy of having one. It would take me more hours of research to get to a firm opinion. All I can do right now, given the time constraints of YouTube script writing, is what the video maker tacitly did. I can appeal to authorities. And all my authorities are saying that this is a place name, not a thing name. Wycliffe, centuries before the King James, had it as a place name. So did the Matthew's Bible, of which the King James is an heir. The Great Bible and the Bishop's Bible, both of which came before the King James, both went with thing instead of place. But they disagreed over what that thing was. One thought it was linen, the other thought it was wares, things you sell. The New King James Version translators might have been wrong on this one, but they stand with a lot of intelligent people of today and of yesteryear, of centuries past. The King James translators themselves admit in their preface that there are a number of Hebrew words whose meaning is uncertain. With the place name keveh, the New King James translators were just trying to be accurate to the meaning of the Hebrew as they saw it. Let me stop for precisely 2 moments and repeat something I wish I didn't have to say so often. The claim of modern English Bible translations is not that in every single instance of revision away from the King James Version, these new translations have used easier wording. The claim is more complex than that. The claim is that they have done their best to translate the Hebrew and Greek of the Bible into contemporary English. Mostly that means easier wording because it's easier to read our English than to read someone else's historical English. But sometimes this involves disagreeing with the King James translators on some minor particulars, like linen yarn versus keveh. And that's okay, unless the King James translators were inspired without knowing it and made completely perfect translation choices. Also, have King James Onlyists like this animator ever read the New King James? He and many other King James Onlyists talk as if the New King James was wholly unsuccessful in its efforts to make the Bible easier to read. I find this argument to be so openly contrary to obvious fact that it's degrading. It's the naked emperor's not only demanding that you praise his new clothes that aren't there, but insisting that you go out and buy them yourself to the exclusion of all others and that you pay him. He's the only one who sells them. Any young child can see that the New King James is easier to read in practically every single sentence than the King James. The existence of even 1,000 harder words in 1,000 different places in the New King James, words that are introduced out of an effort to be faithful and accurate, that would not change this fact. Random verse time. I had my random verse picker get me a New Testament verse. Guess which one is the King James? And the same John had his raiment of camel's hair and a leathern girdle about his loins, and his meat was locusts and wild honey. Here's another translation. Is it the King James? Now John himself was clothed in camel's hair, with a leather belt around his waist, and his food was locusts and wild honey. If you can't tell, or if you can't admit that the latter is easier to read because it's closer to the way we speak, then my heart truly breaks for you. I don't mock you, I lament for you. And I beg you, as I've begged in other videos, pleading on hands and knees, do not let yourself be degraded in this way. Don't let someone force you to say that the sky is actually green. Read just a few chapters of the New King James Version. You simply won't be able to tell me with a straight face, or even a curved one, that the King James is overall easier to read. Now on to the third claim in the video. The video suggests that Belial, or Belial, I've heard it pronounced both ways, is a name for Satan that has been removed from the New King James in 15 places that are actually named on screen. It doesn't suggest a reason for this alleged removal, it only insinuates that the New King James was trying to hide something. This is classic conspiracy theory language. Bad people who don't want you to know what they're doing are pretending to be good people who are just updating the archaic English of the King James, but really they're removing and changing essential truths. Is this what's happening with Belial? No. Let's note a few things. For one, effectively all serious people who have given their lives to learning Hebrew so well that they can write Hebrew-English dictionaries, I'm talking about Christian scholars here, not Jewish ones, I haven't checked with them, they've agreed that the word means worthless. It derives from a root word with that meaning, and that meaning fits the context in which the word is used. Just look at the verses that are splashed all over the screen in the video, and remember that son of in Hebrew can often mean characterized by. The very first that the video cites, 1 Samuel 25:17, shows this. It comes from the story of Nabal. Now therefore know and consider what thou wilt do, for evil is determined against our master and against all his household, for he is such a son of Belial that a man cannot speak to him. If nearly all Christian scholars of Hebrew are right, this means that Nabal is a worthless guy. 1 Samuel 2:12 is another good example. Now the sons of Eli were sons of Belial. They knew not the Lord. What a savage statement. They were wicked and worthless. Yes, ultimately, wicked and worthless people are sons of their father below, but that's not what Belial means in Hebrew. There is a reason this video assumed that Belial means Satan. It's because of language change. Over time, and I get this from the evangelical reference work called the Theological Word Book of the Old Testament, the sons of Belial started to mean sons of Satan. And by New Testament times, that's what Belial meant. So when Paul says in 2 Corinthians 6:15, what concord hath Christ with Belial, he is indeed referring to a person with a proper name. And if you do your homework here, you might notice something. The major modern evangelical English Bibles do use the word Belial here. They do it in that one place in the New Testament where it shows up. And in my judgment, they do it because they see that sons of Belial means worthless men in Hebrew, while a direct reference to Belial by Paul has to be a reference to a person, namely Satan. In fact, the New Living Translation makes it even clearer. It uses the word devil in 2 Corinthians 6:15. Who doesn't know that? Modern translations are not trying to remove Satan. They're actually holding on to the word Belial in one place for good reasons. And at least one modern evangelical English translation is even clearer in its reference to Satan than is the King James or other modern English translations. I can totally see how someone could look at the New Testament reference to Belial and decide that Belial is a proper name in the Old Testament too, everywhere it appears. But the King James translators did not do this. They translated the Hebrew word Belial as wicked or ungodly multiple times. Here are just two examples. The sorrows of death have compassed me, and the floods of ungodly men made me afraid. That's Psalm 18:4 in the King James. An ungodly man, that's Belial, diggeth up evil, and in his lips there is a burning fire. Proverbs 16:27. If it's wrong to translate the Hebrew word Belial in such a way that its possible reference to Satan is removed, why did the King James translators do it? Fourth claim the video makes. The New King James is going Catholic by calling Mary the Virgin rather than a virgin in Isaiah 7:14. Honestly, I've never heard this one before. I didn't really know what he was saying. I still don't quite get it. I don't think, even after trying pretty hard, it's more conspiracy theory thinking. It's just hard for me to put myself in those shoes. In other words, there's secret meaning inside apparently minor differences. I won't deny that the difference in English between the and can be significant. If I told my wife a house is on fire, she'd be interested and concerned. If I told my wife the house is on fire, she'd scream. But there are contexts in which this difference is simply not significant. And one reason I know this is that neither Hebrew nor Greek has an indefinite article like our a or an. They don't have a definite article either. They just have articles. And in neither language does that article function exactly like it does in English. All the same, there clearly is an article in front of the Hebrew word for virgin in Isaiah 7:14, and among the traditional ways to handle that article in translation, the English word the is the leading candidate. I don't think the King James translators did wrong, but I'm not in the habit of telling Bible translators that they aren't allowed to reflect the Hebrew in a standard way because the Catholics might make hay out of it. I personally have never heard Catholics make hay out of this. In fact, the Douay-Rheims Catholic translation says, "A virgin shall conceive," just like the King James does. All the snide remarks about the New King James being Catholic are openly ridiculous. The New King James translators were a bunch of evangelical Protestants, as the list of them that you can find online will show you. The idea that a bunch of major evangelical biblical scholars, many of whose names are still well known today, were secretly working to promote Catholic doctrine by making obscure changes to the Bible, it's utter and complete foolishness. The fifth specific claim the video makes about the New King James continues the Catholic theme, however, by pointing to 1 Corinthians 1:18. Sounds pretty Catholic to me, says the main character. Of course, the New King James character doesn't get to answer much in this video because his lines were written by a King James Onlyist. His job in the video is to sputter a few weak defenses and then to fall over dead. The video is not subtle, so I'm answering for the New King James. And on 1 Corinthians 1:18, I have answered. And though I'm tired of answering this, here I go again. Dwayne Green and I discussed this at some length on his channel, link in the description or up here somewhere. But I'll say this briefly. The Greek very clearly allows for the New King James rendering. Here is that rendering. "For the message of the cross is foolishness to those who are perishing, but to us who are being saved, it is the power of God." Does this verse teach that salvation is by works and that it comes only in the future? Well, if the New King James translators were trying to mess with the doctrine of salvation by grace through faith, why did they keep salvation by grace through faith and keep salvation in the past tense in Ephesians 2? "For by grace you have been saved through faith, and that not of yourselves. It's the gift of God, not of works, lest anyone should boast." The reason they kept it in the past tense is because it's what the Greek says. The New Testament speaks of salvation in past, present, and future terms. I just read a reference to salvation in the past. Ephesians 2. 1 Corinthians 1:18 is a reference to salvation in the present. We are being saved means that we're being sanctified. We're being released from the power of sin progressively. And note that the phrase Paul sets in parallel with those who are being saved is those who are perishing. Like the old man in Monty Python, they're not dead yet. And like Paul in Romans 7, we're not fully saved yet. The power of sin still exists in us, in the old man. That's why Paul can speak of a salvation that is yet to be revealed, or that's Peter actually. Listen to Romans 5:9. "Much more than being now justified by his blood, we shall be saved from wrath through him." That's the King James. Were the King James translators denying that we can say we are saved or have been saved? No, we can say that. But we can also say with Paul that we're being saved progressively from our sin, and we can say with him that we will be saved completely from it one day. Our video is engaging in more conspiracy theorizing. A bunch of evangelical Protestants who've rejected Rome are nonetheless secretly promoting falsehood through a subtle word change that, well, actually doesn't mean what the video says that it means. Sixth, and lastly, we get another argument that I had not heard before, or not in this form. I watched it several times, and I still don't quite get it. There's a longer article written on this topic by the animator who made this video. I'm just going to tell you straight up, I got too weary to go through it all. I ran out of time. When do I get an honorable discharge from investigating the wild claims of conspiracy theories? So I'm going to take a lazy tack on this one and just observe one thing. Supposedly, the New King James changes the very foundation of our beliefs and promotes postmillennialism, all by its use of covenant rather than testament. But were any of the New King James translators postmillennialists? And have any postmillennialists become postmillennialists by reading covenant instead of testament in this one place? This argument might weigh something with me if King James defenders ever acknowledged, as King James defender Chuck Surratt did to his credit, that some of the New King James Version's revisions to the King James were good, at least by using contemporary English. It might weigh something with me, especially if these King James defenders could show that the scholar in charge of translating a certain portion of the New King James was well known for a particular theological viewpoint that he then placed into the text. It might weigh something with me if they could show that a person of goodwill who was just trying to read his Bible faithfully might actually come to the wrong conclusion about theological viewpoint X if he read only the New King James Version. But they never attempt to show any of this. The Greek word translated testament or covenant has two senses at least, which any good lexicon will show you. It can mean last will and testament, as it does in Hebrews 9:16, the verse that the foam King James brings up, but it can also surely mean covenant. A sensitive English translator will use both words, which is exactly what the King James translators did and exactly what modern translators do. Commenters, I don't ever remember doing this before, but would any of you care to read the relevant article at KJVPictures.com and see if I'm misunderstanding something here? I just ran out of energy. Nothing the video said gave me any confidence that my efforts to understand this point would be rewarded with anything substantive. But I totally could be wrong. I'm sorry I let you all down this time on this one of these 6 points. I don't always know what to do when videos like this 3D faux foam animation comes out. What the foam King James tossed off in 20 seconds, I had to take 20 minutes to unpack, not to mention hours of prep, 3 or 4, though thankfully not 20 hours. Do I look foolish giving scholarly analysis to something styled as a video for kids? Perhaps I do. So let me conclude this video by pointing out that detailed exegetical arguments about the proper translation of Hebrew and Greek words into English, or any other language, really don't belong in kid vids. Why do I say this? Because of Proverbs 18:13. If one gives an answer before he hears, it is his folly and shame. There are King James Onlyists out there who stand at the head of the King James telephone line. They're the ones whispering messages that get repeated and garbled. And some of them really do know Hebrew and Greek. I am not denying that. Some of them may respond to me and will no doubt persuade some people. God allows this before epistemological judgment day, when the secrets of all hearts, including mine, are revealed, and when Jesus will be right to say to us all, "Have you not read?" So, I say to all King James defenders who shared or liked this video, "Except ye utter by the tongue words easy to be understood, how shall it be known what is spoken? For ye shall speak into the air." The King James Version contains many archaisms that make reading it unnecessarily difficult. Not impossible, but unnecessarily difficult. The New King James is a careful, worthy update of the King James. I've listened to all the charges against the New King James, and I've answered literally all of them except for that last one about the testador with care. I commend the New King James to you as a worthy younger brother of, not an enemy to, the venerable King James Version. They don't need to have a shootout. They can stay together. The King James Version in this video says,
"You and me, we're nothing alike."
Now I want you to listen to me. Listen. That is a falsehood straight from the pit of Belial. The video ends, ironically, from my perspective, with a citation of 2 Timothy 2:15, "Study to show thyself approved unto God, a workman that needeth not to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth." The simple fact is that study in 1611 English did not mean what it means in our English in a context like this one. It's what I call a false friend. People read right past it without realizing that they're misunderstanding. The King James Version is no longer fully intelligible. Again, I say, the New King James would be great to read alongside the King James if you speak contemporary English.